I'm Mary Pipino, and welcome to Fit for You, the show that teaches you how to live a healthier and more fit lifestyle. Starting to get chilly outside, so we're taking our workouts in. I'm sitting here on a piece of hoist equipment at Ntense Workout, and this is where we're going to be introducing you to the latest and greatest equipment and some of my dear old friends and the second generation of the Straub fitness family. I hope you enjoy the show. We're going to take you back in time and give you a little bit of a history as to how the fitness business started in Youngstown, Ohio. And I'm very proud to introduce my friend and one of the pioneers in fitness, the pioneer in our area, John Straub. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Mary. Mary, do you realize that the first time I spoke to you, it was about working out, and it was about equipment, and that was about 30 years ago.
Exactly, when we were both about 10 years old.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'd like to think that.
Your story is fabulous. You were the first to have a fitness store in Youngstown, Ohio, where people could actually go in and buy equipment. I think one of the first in the country. But let's talk about how it all started with you. You got into this business by accident. And no pun intended, but tell us about the accident.
Well, it was January 1977, very cold, and a truck went left of center and hit me head on. It was a horrific car wreck. Left me in the hospital for 7 months, fractured femurs, fractured tibia and fibula, you name it, facial damage, everything. I was there. It was a tough time to recover. Wheelchair, crutches. They didn't really have the type of rehab they have today. So it was like, how was I going to get going again? How was I going to get walking?
Did they think you were going to walk?
I really don't know that. Why I don't know that is because the physician that put me back together actually died of terminal cancer while I was in the hospital, my orthopedic doc. So I really didn't have that guidance to know what was going to happen after I got in the hospital. I just truly got out in a wheelchair, went to my home. My dad opened up all the doorways. He built ramps so that I could get around the house. And then it was like, all right, well, what are we going to do? I got to get my legs stronger. Well, back then, you really couldn't just go somewhere and buy equipment, good equipment, for the type of rehab that I needed. So my dad was a steel worker, and he said, why don't we just build it? So he brought back steel, he brought back a welder into our home, into our garage, and we started building it. And I built.
Now, before you started building, tell us about you were going through magazines.
Correct. And back then, you had basic stuff. You had Muscle and Fitness, you had Ironman. So what I did was I would look at guys that were bodybuilding their legs. But you got to remember, I wasn't about bodybuilding. I was about rehabilitation. And I always thought there was a very thin line between general fitness and rehabilitation. Because when you really think about it, what are you doing even if you're trying to bodybuild? You're getting that weak muscle and you're developing it. So what I had to do was I had to find equipment that actually worked on those parts of my legs that I felt needed development.
So the first piece of equipment you find in the magazine that you said, I think I can do this, was?
It was a leg extension leg curl. But it was very, it was
basic.
Very basic. And the problem what I had with basic was when I would sit down on it, I only had like 10% range of motion.
Now, you were in a wheelchair during this time.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. But it wasn't because I wasn't going to be able to walk down the road. Mm-hmm. It was just because of my brakes. Mm-hmm. And I had to I couldn't have weight bearing on them for a long time. So at this time, I was looking at how can I get going? Well, the only problem was I had too much atrophy in my muscle, so I had to get it developed. So the thing was if I built a leg extension leg curl and I put weight on it, how was I going to get into the machine? So that because I didn't have any range of motion in my legs, because my leg only went down 10%. So I said, well, wait a second, I got to develop a machine where this leg roller can actually come up and I could start there. So I started at 10%, I dropped it down to 20, dropped it down to 30, dropped it down to 40. Well, how was I going to do that? So I built a cam, I built a pin on the side, and I would just every time I would get to the next level, I'd just move the pin.
And you would be able to adjust the leg plate.
Correct.
And for those that aren't familiar, the leg extension is where you're sitting in the machine and you're bringing your legs up and down. And the leg curl, if it's a seated, you're going the opposite direction, or you can be laying.
Correct. Back then, they didn't even have seated then. It was a prone bench, so you laid on your belly. And that was another thing. It was really tough to do because you had to lay down. That was a tough movement for me. It was a tough when you can't really even walk. And you're from a seated position, you have to roll over. So that was another thing that happened. I found out that I couldn't do this as a combo. I had to do two separate pieces. So I ended up doing a prone bench, and then for the curls, but I did the same range of motion on that. And that actually led to something because at the time, the industry didn't have what we called range of motion. You had these high-end companies, medical companies, that had this kind of stuff, but not for home use or gym use. So when I developed that range of motion, a lot of the industry took hold of that. It was kind of neat.
And you were able to create some things that eventually were sold to some of the major companies that we know and understand today.
Yeah, a lot of the things you see today on our product, and big name companies, believe it or not, went with these ideas. And that was the neatest part. But I think there again, the difference between myself and a lot of the other people and a lot of the other designers, they were designers and they were builders, they were welders. They didn't do it from necessity. I needed that product, so I built what I needed. So, and that kind of led into where we're at today, because all I really saw, I saw a void in the marketplace at that time. It wasn't that I decided like I'm going to start a business. That wasn't my intent. My intent was to truly help people like myself that needed to rehab their body.
Which is a similar way, and I don't want to get off track because we're going to bring your daughters in later and talk a little bit about Pilates, for example, which is how Joseph Pilates started Pilates when he was injured from a hospital bed. But let's get back to muscle connection. So then you get the brilliant idea of, all right, we need to have a retail store where people can come in, see this equipment, and have a venue to purchase it, correct?
What happened back then, if you go back to 1977, we had sporting goods stores, we had health food stores, and these stores would all put a little bit of like benches, maybe some weights, but nobody ever did it as a full-fledged fitness equipment store. And back then, we used the term workout a lot. We didn't really use the term fitness. We didn't use the word aerobic back then. You know, we didn't understand those terms yet, because don't forget, at that time, Cooper Institute wasn't even around. So the word aerobic had just come about. So we were just breaking ground into that. And we were pretty much into what I would call the fitness revolution at that time. I was right at the start of it. So it was, even though I had this horrific auto wreck, it kind of was the right time to do what I needed to do for myself and for the industry.
So now you decide, okay, we're going to create a retail venue that is dedicated strictly to equipment. Did you build your own equipment in the beginning? Were you buying some? How did you stock the store?
It was actually both. There were certain things you just couldn't make, like a weight plate, for example. There was a foundry down in Sinking Springs, Pennsylvania. What I used to do was I would leave my house like at 11 o'clock at night. I'd drive 5 hours, load up my pickup truck, and buy this iron and bring it back up. And I would because when I started this, it was actually out of my dad's basement, out of my house in Camel. And it was kind of a unique setup because, you know, we're Camel, so everything's on hills. So you came up my driveway and you went in through a side door, and you one step down, you were in the basement. So that's where I used to bring all my weight. I'd bring bars. I went to a trade show. I found some weight belts and gloves. Once again, not thinking that I wanted to start a business, but just saying, man, I never saw this stuff around here. I think somebody would want to buy this kind of stuff. At that time, all the equipment was being made by myself out of my garage. And as it went on, now you start finding out that there's other things you could get into. You start finding out that, hey, maybe I could sell a treadmill, I could sell a rower, I could sell an exercise bike. And that's how it came about.
Where was the first store?
Well, the first store, the actual name Muscle Connection started out of my dad's house in Camel, where I actually had a sign put up and I had lights shining down on it. And it was kind of unique because at the time I was working, my brother got me my first job ever after my auto wreck. And it was in a machine shop. And so at that point I learned a lot more about how to develop product. So it was pretty neat, but I actually wasn't going to call my store Muscle Connection, believe it or not. I was going to call it like home fitness equipment, home workout equipment. But every time I tried to register that name as a business, those names were taken. So what I ended up doing was, I said, what would connect me to what I'm doing, me to the muscles? I said, Muscle Connection. So simple, but it took.
It's a great name.
Yeah, it kind of works.
And it's very cool because now you have been able to develop this store that has very, very state-of-the-art equipment and bring your daughters into the business. Two fabulous girls that we're going to meet very soon, Al and Steph, and just touch a little bit upon how they got into it. You started them off very young, didn't you?
I did. And you got to remember, it's just like when you're in this business and you have your own your personal life and your professional life is making and selling fitness equipment, your kids become a part of that, whether they want to or not. It's just part of your life. And I don't think they knew anything else, because you got to remember, when they were both born, I had already had Muscle Connection started, and we were already into it as about 3 or 4 years. So as they grew up, they really didn't know anything else. They grew up around weights, they grew up around bikes and treadmills, and once again, it was always about that, not just about general fitness. It wasn't about saying, hey, we want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It wasn't about that. It was about truly keeping yourself healthy, keeping yourself fit so that you could go on with your daily life.
And see, that's what I love most about your story. It's all based on the health foundation, not just how do I look. It's all about how I feel, how's my functionality. And I think that's really what fitness and working out is all about. And if you can establish that mindset, then you can make it a part of your life. You know, because then you get it into, like I said, it's about how you feel and your quality of life.
I agree. And
well, go ahead.
And we got to remember that a lot of people in life, we got fit people out there, we really do. But the majority of them can go through life. You can start off as a young adult, but as you get older, things happen. Our bodies start to break down. You slip on some ice, you break a leg, you're lifting a bag out of your trunk of your car and you strain your back. These are all part of living. This is what we go through in our everyday lives. We want to condition ourselves for everyday lives first. Then if the other stuff comes along, great.
Exact functional training. Think of the functions you perform in your daily life, and then you want to put your fitness routine around that so you strengthen the muscles and joints and so on that go along with.
Yeah,
I'm anxious to meet the girls. I have one last question for you before we go to our next segment. What would you say is the most innovative thing in fitness that you have seen in your tenure from inception to today?
Well, that's a good question, because there's been a lot of different things that have come and gone. But I think the biggest innovation is going to be the Precor elliptical. And what I dig about this product is that you have a product that's weight bearing, it's non-impact, my foot never leaves the surface, so I'm able to make the same motion as walking and running. I'm able to add resistance to that product. It's one of the few products I would classify not only as general fitness, but also rehabilitation. And like I said, as we go through life, we may have these times where we're feeling very good, but we're also going to have those times when we're going through an injury. That's one of those products that could do both.
Excellent. And you know, you make the point about injury, and also you can have a genetic propensity to something. You may have a heart attack. God, you know, forbid that it's if it's serious, but whatever. If you have a genetic propensity to something, and something does happen, at least if you're in some type of condition before it happens, you're going to recover much better. And if you're not, and you can incorporate fitness into the recovery, the quality and the recovery is going to be so much better after. So
I agree with that. And
yes.
You know, if we could do that preventive maintenance for our own body versus just the reactive, man, it can make a big difference.
Excellent. Let's meet the girls. It's my pleasure to introduce the first of the Straub girls, Allison Straub Zabel. And small world, your husband's family was friends with my family, and so
wow.
Yeah, nice connection.
Absolutely.
All kind of connections in this
connections.
area. So Al, very interesting background. You got into fitness when you were very young.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about your certifications.
Sure.
Run through them very quickly. You are?
I have NETA, which is the National Exercise Council of Association, and I have my personal training group exercise, Pilates, and my indoor cycling through them. I have ACE, which is the American Council on Exercise, and I have their health coach, and the Titleist Performance Institute Level 3 Fitness Expert.
And the Titleist Fitness Expert certification is something we want to spend a lot of time on.
Definitely.
Because you are one of the few people in the country that have this certification.
Yes, it's a very elite certification, so I'm excited to have it and bring it to the area.
And for all of our golfers out there, you want to listen and pay attention.
Definitely.
Because it definitely can have an impact on your game.
It will, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit. It's called the Titleist Performance Institute, TPI, Fitness Certification. There are 3 levels.
Yes.
Tell us how you started playing golf when you were how old?
I started playing about middle school and got really into it high school and college. Played at Poland High School and Youngstown State University for a few years. And it was while I was at YSU that I got a little bit more into both the fitness industry and into golf. So it was a combination of both of those.
What was your major at YSU?
It was business administration.
Which I like to note because you bring the business angle,
Yes.
and then and then got into the fitness side of it.
Yes, definitely. So while I was there, I was doing the golf and the fitness, and was at the rec center at YSU, and that's where I started getting my certifications. I started with my Pilates, then went on to group. And at that time, Titleist Performance Institute had put out the Golf Fitness Academy on the Golf Channel. So at the end of each episode, they say to find your local TPI certified instructor. So I started looking into their programs and seeing if that was something that I would be able to become. And there was a certification that was in Cleveland, and I went to the level 1 and then decided I wanted to pursue the other 2 levels from there.
Now tell us what was involved in level 1.
In level 1, you go over fitness screens. And what a screen is we're looking at the mobility and stability of someone, which it goes into the function that we talked about a little bit earlier. And just knowing that our body needs to be able to move in certain ways, enable for us to get an efficient swing and to get the most out of that golf swing motion. So anything from looking at shoulder mobility and stability to our hips, knees, all the different joints, and we take a close look at that so we can analyze where these issues may be lying so that we can actually improve them and get the result that a golf swing coach may be looking for.
So after level 1, then you went on to Orlando for level 2.
I did, yes.
Tell us a little bit about level 2.
Level 2 got more in depth with what we learned in level 1 on how to actually create exercises and a continuum for improving those flaws that we may have found in level 1. And then we get into strength and power testing. So that takes it to the next level where you actually add strength and some rotary power into your exercise program.
And then you took the big trip to San Diego?
Yes, that was very exciting. That was level 3, and it was actually at the Titleist Performance Institute headquarters in Oceanside, California. So that was taught by the 2 creators, Greg Rose and Dave Phillips, who actually came up with the Golf Fitness Academy and created the Titleist Performance Institute. And they were the ones that were right there in front of you teaching this, and you were at the headquarters that they had designed. And seeing them teaching the professionals that are on tour and being able to see that this same practice that I was learning is what those that are on tour are doing.
Now, what did level 3 involve that was different from 1 and 2?
Level 3 kind of tied it all together. So we got into nutrition of an athlete and training specifically for women because it is different than the way that men train, getting and tying it all up, getting into those power motions and meeting with some of the biggest leaders in the fitness industry for that and learning their philosophies.
Were the founders more golfers than fitness people, or fitness that enjoyed golf?
It was a little bit of both. The two founders are mainly into the golf and the fitness. They're both professionals in both, getting their professional cards and then getting into their fitness certifications in that too, so having degrees in both.
I wondered, because that would definitely, you probably do need both to,
You do,
to bring it all together.
Sure.
You mentioned very different for men and women. What's one of the differences?
Just basically the cycles with women, the way, and our body types. Like some women are a little bit shorter, and the height makes a big difference on the way that women can perform, and different ways that we can actually plan out their monthly workout plans and everything. So it does make a big difference in that way.
So body chemistry does play a role as well.
It really does, definitely.
When we were preparing for the segment, I said, oh, it's very core focused, right? And you said you'd be surprised. No.
It is, yeah. It's very much in our glutes.
Yes, the glutes are a big deal.
Yeah, the glutes are our powerhouse. And
the glutes, in a very nice way, are the buttocks.
It is. It is.
Yep.
And I think everybody wants that six-pack and the core, and so we spend so much time on that, not realizing that the glutes are the biggest muscle in the body, and that's what we really have to strengthen and stabilize in order to get a lot of our just basic posture correct, so that we could avoid any extra pressure on our joints, upper and lower body.
And then the glutes tie into a large muscle behind the leg that we'll call the hamstring.
Yes, they do.
And that's important also, correct?
It is, yeah, definitely. You want, you need to keep those flexible and strong in order to gain a lot of power. In the golf swing, our power is coming from, it's the kinematic sequence that starts from our stance, and that power is generated from the ground. And when we swing, we're going from the rotation from one side to the other. So we need to generate power on one side, and that's coming all the way from the core up as we rotate, and then we can drive that power through the other side.
Now, if I wanted to do a program with you, I would come here and meet with you,
Yes.
train on property. Now, explain to me, how long of a commitment do I need to see a real impact in my game? Do I train once a week, 5 times a week? Do I have to do it for 3 months, 6 months?
With any workout program, it's going to be 3 days a week. Is going to be your ultimate success with
And do you
the
like a day in
program.
between, at least?
That would be ideal, yes. But we can, if you only have Monday through Wednesday available, we could definitely make it work. With the TPI itself, what we would do is go over like your medical health history and everything, and I would go through the full screens from level 1, the mobility, stability.
And when we bring your sister Stephanie, and we're going to actually do a couple of the screenings and show what they are.
Absolutely. And then we would go through the strength and power testing as well. So then that way I could design a program that's custom to you.
So I come in, you do what I'm going to call my evaluation.
Yes.
And then you need a little bit of time to actually put what I'm going to call my exercise prescription together.
Yes.
And then I would come in, and then you train me specifically for
Exactly.
myself. What kind of a couple of, without naming names, have you seen, people being able to drop their game by 5 strokes, 10 strokes?
Yeah, a lot of distance, more confidence. I've seen they just feel a lot better since adding the exercise program in. And there has been some that have been able to drop their handicaps about 4 or 5 strokes.
That's huge.
It is. Yeah, especially when you get into some elite athletes that are already single-digit handicaps. So
That's fantastic.
Definitely.
I want to get out on the floor and show what you can do.
sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure to introduce the other Straub sister, Stephanie Straub. Hi, Steph.
Hi, how are you?
Good. We know you have your business degree in accounting, but tell us about your fitness certifications.
As far as fitness goes, I have my NITA, which is also my sister has, the group certification, personal training, group cycling, as well as Pilates. I'm Yoga Fit, yoga, and a few specialties as far as Zumba and Pilates goes.
Pretty impressive.
Yes, it's fun.
And you do personal training.
I do, yes.
And you're going to be our model when we get into doing the Titleist performance
Yes.
But what I want to talk about first is one of the biggest challenges, I think you will agree with me, we have with clients is getting people motivated and keeping them motivated.
Oh, absolutely.
And Precor came out with this AMT,
Yes.
and it has the most phenomenal software package, which is called
Priva.
And tell us what Priva does, because then you're going to demo it for us in a minute here.
Priva is a software that is on all Precor cardio. What you do is you log into it. It tracks all your workouts. It gives you goals, and it'll tell you you just traveled as far as the Great Wall of China, and just little motivational tools. You can also access the internet, hook up an iPod or iPhone, watch TV, listen to your music. It's just really great.
And that's what I think is really cool, because if people, are concerned, well, I'm too busy, I have to, have to work, I don't have time. This is a great piece of equipment that you can get on, be moving, get on the internet. If you have to do, some work, you can get your work done while you're working out to keep your mind off of sometimes what people call the boredom of doing the activity.
It helps it go by a lot faster. We have a ton that check their emails, just do the day-to-day routine while working out.
I want you to demonstrate this because it is just so cool. So I'm going to step aside, you're going to get on, and I want you to start with signing in. The other cool thing is you can sign in on this piece of equipment, and if you're traveling to another state or probably another country, you can get on Precor that has this software, sign in, and your historical workout record will come up. You can incorporate your current workout wherever you are into your history, and you pull it up from wherever.
Absolutely.
So Steph, the cool thing I love about this is you can get onto this machine, you sign in, and you could be traveling anywhere in the world. Any facility that has this type of equipment, a Precor piece of equipment with this software, you sign in, you can pull up your historical workouts, and you can incorporate the workout you're going to be doing in that particular geographic location into your history and pull it back up when you come home.
Yes.
It's amazing. So you signed in now, and
It said welcome Steph. I can go pick my program, watch TV.
pull the TV screen up real quick because I think it's really cool. You would have a headset on, so you're not interfering with
Plug right here for your headphones.
the person next to you.
We have a basic cable on here. You can watch TV. There's an adapter right up here for your iPod or iPhone. Listen to music from there. And then, like I said, you can also access.
Now let's go to the internet because this is what I love. It's almost like a little workout desk. You can get on.
Just go straight to Google. From there, you can check your email. You can use any website that you want.
That's fantastic. And the motion is very much like an elliptical, correct?
This is the AMT, that stands for Adaptive Motion Trainer. It's kind of a combination between a stepper and an elliptical, because you start out in the step motion, you can go into a light jog or a full sprint.
And I like the fact that your arms and your legs are working.
Yes.
It's really that full body workout.
It is. You feel it full body.
And you know, when we were talking with your sister about the importance of the glutes, for example, in golf, this is a great way to work your glutes.
This is a great machine for that. Yes.
Can you control your resistance?
You can, yes. So right here, there's 1 through 5. It shortens the stride length. So when you're up to 5, it's more of that stepper, and you can increase your resistance, which targets your glutes and your quads a little bit more.
And I notice it has the handheld mechanics so that you can get your heart rate at any point in time.
Right here. Also, if you have a polar heart rate monitor, the strap will pick up onto the screen.
Fantastic. Okay, girls, Steph and Allie, one of the coolest things I think you have in here, and something you really don't see, as a matter of fact, I've never seen one except here, is your stretching table. So explain, because most people are used to laying or lying on the floor and stretching.
Yeah.
I think Steph is going to be our model, and Al, you're going to be our trainer.
Yes.
So do you want to demo stretching on the table for a client?
Absolutely. I'd like to go over a couple stretches that will really help the mobility of the lower body for our TPI that we were talking about that will enhance our golf swing. So you can go ahead and lay down. And what we're going to do is a basic basic hamstring stretch. So go ahead and take one knee into And we're going to actually extend. So if you could see, she's kind of tight. We see some shaking going on. So this is what we want to loosen up here. With stretching, you want to make sure that any of this static stretching, where we are just taking one muscle, we want to elongate it, you want to take your time getting into this. This is something that you don't want to do at the beginning of a workout. We want to have our body warm, because you could hurt a muscle just by doing a stretch, just like you can if you go too hard in a workout without being warmed up.
So you want to have a little bit of cardio, a little bit of a warm-up, maybe 10, 15, 20-minute warm-up.
Yes,
or
absolutely.
After your cardio, then get into your stretching.
Yes, yes.
The other thing I want to point out about the table that's very cool, as a trainer, when you're working with your client, it's not like you're on the floor trying to maneuver. It's a much better way for you to connect and I think train and assist the client.
Oh, it is.
Because now you're standing up and they are not, everybody isn't flat on the floor.
Right, right. Yeah, it's definitely a much better situation for both the client and the trainer, and it allows us to get more into the necessary stretching for what we're trying to accomplish.
And I'll tell you, and it's very good because when you're on the back too, and sometimes even when you have a mat, depending on the surface of the floor, it can be really hard on the body, the spine, the back.
It can, absolutely.
Want to demo one more?
Sure. We're going to go ahead, and this is a nice one for our hip flexors that we want to keep loose, and it's a great stretch. It's just taking our ankle right over the other side. We're going to bend that bottom leg. We're going to want to try to keep this leg as parallel to the wall as we can, and get into that stretch right there. So this all the way from that outer thigh, the glute, even gets into our hamstring and hip flexor. So this is hitting a lot of muscles for us. So this is a great one, whether you just got done doing some cardio or did a lower body routine. This is going to be one of our key stretches that we'd want to get into.
If a client wanted to schedule time with you girls just to do a stretching workout.
Yes, we have plenty that do that at core and stretching. Yeah, we would recommend probably about a half an hour for that.
Because I don't think people always understand. It doesn't always have to be about coming in and lifting weights or coming in and getting on a piece of cardio. It can be just about doing something like this, which is so important. And for me, for example, I'm so good about my cardio and my weights. I'm not as good about my stretching. And plus, when you have somebody helping you stretch, a trainer, a professional, you can get a much better stretch.
You can. Yeah, it helps you get into it a little bit more than you would on your own. Just working out with a trainer, it even helps just push yourself that little bit more.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Okay, so we went from the stretching table. Now we're actually going to demonstrate a piece of equipment that Precor designed for stretching.
Yes.
Allison, talk us through, and Steph, you can show us how it actually works.
What's really nice about this stretcher is it's a total body stretching, and it's one of those that's great at the end of a workout routine. You really don't have to think about it because it has a lot of your stretches right on here for you. So you could do upper body. If you just have your hands at the top and you sit back into the machine, that gets into our lower back, our shoulders, and our upper body. So we get a nice stretch there. We can also do different hand positions just to hit our muscles a little bit different. This is another way that we could stretch our hamstring. And what's nice about even hitting it from the stretch table to coming on here is you're just hitting those muscles a little bit different and helping to elongate them. So doing both the Precor stretcher as well as our free stretching on the table are both very good to do.
Allison, for someone who's older and is having a difficult time with mobility, this is an excellent apparatus.
It really is. Yeah, definitely. Just helping us to get into our muscles, to stretch them out, holding each stretch for 10 to 30 seconds even, and doing that a few times. And you could do that daily with stretching.
And if you can't, if you take it back, want to come back, Steph? The good thing is you don't have to go all the way back. You can ease into it. So if you can if your range of motion is very limited in the beginning, and then you can build into this.
It's all whatever you're capable of doing, and then as you move forward with the exercises, then that progresses.
And the great thing about this is it's very easy and compact. and we can get it at Muscle Connection. You can put it into your home.
Right. Oh,
you can put it
absolutely.
anywhere, and people don't understand that flexibility is
so
so
huge.
critical,
It really
exactly,
is, really
to a
is.
healthy and fit body, and especially as we age.
It is, and we notice that this is probably the part that everybody skips. They'll come in here, do their hour of cardio, do a half hour of strength training, and they just run out the door. They don't stretch out their muscles, and that's gonna that could lead to injury, and we want to prevent that as much as we can.
And this is something, and I'm so notorious, about that type of a workout, getting my others in. What I like about this too is you can be watching TV.
Oh, definitely.
And it's kind of like it can be a very relaxing workout.
It can, absolutely.
It makes it
a
easy.
nice way to stretching even before bed, and that will help calm you down a little bit and
Yes.
get ready for a good night's rest,
Yes.
which is important too.
We talked about the Titleist certification, and now we want to demonstrate the screenings.
Yes.
So, Allison, pick a couple of the 16 screenings.
Sure. What we're going to start with is the overhead deep squat. So I'm going to go ahead and give Stephanie this bar. What we're going to do is just take the bar, 90-degree angle up at the top. So we're going to take our hands right apart, start down here, 90-degree angle, and then press all the way up to the sky. Our feet are going to be hip width apart, facing forward. What we're going to do from here, just go ahead and
No, I'm going to
sit
stop you
back.
right here.
Yeah.
Shoulders, we have to make sure, because people have a tendency to do, shrug up their shoulders. You want the shoulders down.
Down. For this one, we're just reaching up to the sky.
And are we holding our tummy tight? Are we watching our core? Conscientious.
What these screens are is we just want to go through them and see how a person's natural reaction is to each screen, so we can isolate the movement that we're focusing on. And so throughout all 16 screens, we actually are able to see every movement in the body and get a good idea of where we're at.
So you want the people, and that's kind of what I wanted to point out. Don't try to do it perfect.
Exactly.
We want to see
Your
just what you
natural
do in your
motion.
natural state, because you can't see where the problems lie if people are trying to suck in their tummy and be their best when they're okay.
Exactly.
Perfect.
So we're going to go ahead and take that right up to the sky and just try and sit back as far as you can. Now, if we can see her feet flared out a little bit, she's not all the way down. And we have this movement where the bar is coming forward. So there are some limitations here that we see. You can go ahead and come up. I'll take the bar now. So what we see with the overhead deep squat is that we have a little bit of weakness in our glutes. We also have tightness in our dorsiflexors in the back of our ankle and calf. So what this does is it limits our mobility. So we want to create those stretches that are going to elongate those areas and create more mobility with the dorsiflexors as well. And what this does for the golf swing is you would actually notice it could happen that they would actually overextend, which means when you're down to approach the ball, when you're swinging through, you could stand up at the point of return to the golf ball.
Excellent. Now, screening number 2.
Yes, screening number 2 will be, I'll bring this guy over. All right. So screening number 2 is called the reach, roll, and lift. What I'm going to do is have Steph go down and starting what we would call in yoga a little piece of heaven. So our hands are out. We're going to stack fist one on top of each other by our forehead. From here, what we're doing is we're looking at the stability and mobility of our shoulder, our stabilizers here, which is going to come into play as we rotate and carry the club back in our swing. Go ahead and take one arm out and reach out as far as you can. Go ahead and flip that up and reach up as high as you can. Go ahead and lower that down, and you feel this muscle firing. We're going to bring that hand back and switch to the other side.
You know, it's interesting and it's hard to see,
flip up.
but when she takes that arm up, it's
lower.
it's hard to lift
And
that
bring it
arm and
back.
hold it.
It is.
And you can
absolutely.
see
Go
her
ahead and
shaking
come
a
up.
little bit because
You
it's a hard
can.
movement.
So it's very different, and what we look for is how they're able to lift, how far they're lifting with that, if that muscle is actually triggering, and what we can do to get that muscle to trigger.
Now, So say she happens to be somebody who has some weakness there. What is the exercise to complement and strengthen that?
What we want to do is start with our stretching and flexibility for it. And the first one would be, we're going to roll out onto the ball into that same position, and we're going to roll side to side.
I love the ball.
To loosen up those muscles.
Yes, and it's fun to do it, and it feels good.
It does. And then to strengthen from there, a good strength exercise would be the overhead presses for that, and mid-back, anything that we're doing to trigger those muscles there. So we'll start with a progression with that.
If an individual wants to have a fitness evaluation, you incorporate some of these same principles of giving them these same types of things to do, correct? To determine where the weaknesses lie in their particular frame, and then work to build up to...
We do, because it's not only for the golf. Like we were talking about earlier with the functional fitness, you want to have that base of mobility and stability before you even start attacking any of the equipment that we have here and adding weight. Because if you can't do that movement without any weight, there's no reason to put that extra stress on your body and try to perform those movements with weight before we can do them with our bodies.
And you know, I tell people, if you're on a budget, and be it financial or a time budget, I think it's really important, get an assessment with a personal trainer. Even if you're somebody who works out, like myself, I will find myself falling into the habit of doing the same things that I like, they're comfortable, I know them. Even it could be lifting a lot of weight in a particular exercise, but it's the same exercise for that body part often.
Oh, right.
A trainer will tell you, okay, let's do some different exercises for that same body part, so then you can get a little different result. We're finding changing it around.
It is. About 6 weeks is where you want to be at to change around that routine.
Yes, so at least get an evaluation, then get a program specific to your body, and then update it every few months.
Update the program, absolutely.
Yes, excellent. I want to express my sincere appreciation to the Straub family, my dear friend John and his beautiful daughters, Allison and Stephanie. And I hope you have an opportunity to visit Muscle Connection and Ntense Workout. It's fantastic, and it will keep you fit throughout these chilly winter days coming ahead. Thank you. I'm Mary Pipino, and this is Fit for You.